businesses. We were recently featured in Inc. Magazine's 30 Under 30 with our founder Dan Schawbel, that handsome young man over there in the wall. And we had our event here at Splash, and we're very excited to be back here. But enough about us. We all want to know about our speaker, as I can see the excitement on everybody's faces. He is the go-to event planner internationally. He's done Obama's inauguration, Chelsea Clinton's wedding, which I think a couple people have maybe heard about. I think he was in the news somewhere. He's on the Today Show a lot. He was in Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40. And he's Best of Boston 8 years in a row, I believe. Is that correct? Something like that. I cannot be more excited to have him here. Ladies and gentlemen, Bryan Rafanelli.
Thank you, Tim. How's everyone tonight? Well, so first, congratulations. I think it's amazing that you all came out tonight. This is incredible. It's one of these things. I was telling a few people that I was talking to that when I started my business, and really up until maybe 24 hours ago, I never went to networking events. I never took the time to do it. I was so in my business all the time that I might put it on my schedule, but I look at it and there's no way I can go to that. I've got to stay at the office. So I never actually did this. So I think it's pretty extraordinary that you've taken the time and given yourself the time to come here and actually hear what I have to say. So I hope I don't disappoint you. But I love to talk about what I do because I'm very proud of what I do. And up until this point, it's been an absolute amazing experience. My favorite part of doing anything like this, and this is a request I have of you, is I love the question and answer part of this. So I really hope that you'll think about asking me some questions that I don't tell you about, and because I'm not afraid of that. I think it's really helpful for both of us to understand. I really want to understand what you're thinking and what you're really looking for from me, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are about perhaps what you perceive of the company that we've built. But let me start with that. So I'm Bryan Rafanelli, and I own Rafanelli Events, and I started Rafanelli Events in 1996. Today we are 25 strong. My office is over at 867 Boylston Street, which is diagonally across from the Mandarin Oriental, and it's 5 doors down from the Apple Store. It's just this cool little 5-story building. Life is Good is on the 5th floor. The Iacocca Foundation is in there as well. It's just this great little place. I'm proud of it because it's something I always imagined 15 years ago, of having my own office space that I designed, that was filled with hopefully very, very hardworking, happy people. And I'm pretty proud to say that I think that's what's going on today, unless any of them are here. And I'll tell you something different. Anyway, so I'm 25 strong. The offices that we have now are in Boston. We have one in DC, we have one in New York, and I also have one in Palm Beach. I got into this business in kind of an interesting way. I always kind of like to, if you can follow the bouncing ball, I was one of these kids who always had a mother who loved to throw parties and literally did, every kind of party imaginable. But the days that I really remember, like on St. Patrick's Day, if you were in our house, and you went anywhere, there was green food coloring in everything. So in the milk, in the orange juice, which was kind of gross. And then my father's Italian, Rafanelli, and so he used to play jokes on my mother, and he put green food coloring in the bathroom toilet water. And we were really, but it was fun, and our house was full of celebration all the time. So I grew up with this. So even when we all went away to school, we'd come home in the summer and all our birthdays had been missed because we were away. My mother would throw a giant party and out would come 5 birthday cakes. She just always was over the top. At my sister's wedding, I think there's a few people who know my sister who's here. She got married at Rosecliff in Newport, Rhode Island, which is a spectacular location. It's a Stanford White building. Really extraordinary. And so there were 400 guests, 40 tables, and my mother had a wedding cake at every table. So she's a little over the top. So that kind of trickled down to me a little bit. Anyway, so inevitably, I'd like to tell my family story a little bit because I'm one of 5 kids. I'm number 4. And I was a little bit of always trying to, look up to my brothers and sisters who are all very successful, and by the way, all have their own businesses. My father was a lawyer. He actually recently passed away. But he was a corporate lawyer, and he would come home every day and basically say to us, you need to own your own business. Work for yourself. Even though he never worked for himself, oddly enough. we inevitably all had that in our blood. So it is something that I think about now, that it was something that I said, oh, I guess I should do that. So inevitably I did. It was always on the top of my mind that even when I worked for other people, I always thought that I wanted to work for myself. So let me tell you a little bit more about my journey. I actually went to Syracuse University. And I understand there's a few orange men here. And I joined a fraternity in my first semester, Delta Tau Delta. And I know it's kind of cliche, but it's really how I got into this business. It's like we threw a party once a week. Literally, every Friday night we would have a party. And every kind of imaginable party. And of course I joined the social committee, and then I chaired the social committee, and then I became president of the house, and then I became president of all the fraternities on campus with Greek Council. And literally we did every kind of event you can imagine, including dance-a-thons and all these major ice sculpture promotions and all sorts of stuff. And at that time, this was in the 80s, there's no such thing as a special events major. And I know there's a few people here who mentioned to me that they're special events majors, but this business, or what I'm in, just didn't exist. So it kind of fell into the category of public relations. But having said that, it really wasn't what I thought about. I was just having a great time learning how to throw parties and really enjoying it. I left Syracuse and came to Boston. The only reason I came here is because I didn't want to go to law school, and that's what my father wanted me to do. And my big brother, Dave Reed, in my fraternity, came here a year ahead of me and joined an executive training program at Filene's. And I didn't want to be in retail, but I thought it was a cool thing to do. I wouldn't have to go to law school. And he was making $28,000 a year, which was a lot of money at that point. So that's why I came, literally. That's my story. I came to Boston because I was like, oh, I'll join this executive training program. Dave will get me a job, and I'll figure out what I'm going to do next. And inevitably, I went to Filene's. I worked there for 3 years. I hate retail. I hated everything about it. But what I will tell you is it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. So I had somebody pay me to learn how to run a business. And I was in this executive training program with these really brilliant people around me, my own age. And it was great, I mean, I have to say. Now, on the other side of that, of course, at the time, I just didn't like it. And I always wanted to go to design school, so I went back to design school. I went to the Boston Architectural Center. And I worked and went to school at the same time. Pretty tough program, but I landed this plum job with a firm called Stein & Associates. And they did interior architecture, and they had a major client, United States Trust Bank, and they had tons of money. And the client's daughter loved me, fell in love with me, and so she would always request me on projects, and that was fantastic. So we flew to Paris to pick out copper cookware, and we went all over the country to put art collections together, and I drove around in limousines, and anyway, it was really fun. But all kidding aside, I had this crash course in architecture, interior architecture, space planning, you know, all things that I will tell you that I tap into every single day of my business now. There's no question about it that I can walk into a space like this, size it up immediately, and tell you that we could probably sit 60 people or 75 people for dinner at 60-inch rounds. I can do that, and it has a lot to do with that experience. Having said that, at the exact same time, it was in the middle of the AIDS crisis, and I lost a friend of mine that I only knew a couple of years, but he was 32 years old, and he passed away within 6 months not of me knowing him, but very quickly passed away in 6 months. And it really devastated me and shook my life up a little. And there was a guy at his parents' house that night who ran an AIDS service organization, and he said, why don't you turn your pain into grief? Why don't you come to the AIDS Action Committee and volunteer? So I did, and I joined the Special Events Committee. And from there, for the next 3 years, I did every kind of event, once again, maybe similar to what I was doing at Delta Tau Delta, but I did registration, and I did silent auctions and live auctions, and then I started to chair the events, and then I started to come up with the concepts of the events, and I worked with graphic designers, and we did videos, and then I started to meet couples who were chairing these events, who had lots and lots of money, and their daughters were getting married, and they were running corporate events, and they, like, you know, Steffi from United States Trust took a liking to me and said, you should plan my daughter's wedding, you should, you know, go into your own business. And I thought, aha, maybe I should do this. I can bring together what I learned in the design firm. I can bring together what I learned actually back in my fraternity, believe it or not, of working together with people, with diverse people, trying to come to consensus. I carry that all with me now.